Greetings, I'm Samuel. But there's more to me than just Samuel. I live with dissociative identity disorder, which means I have multiple personalities. Understanding these distinct personas only began when I turned 16. There are many aspects of my life that I've hesitated to share, including some truly dreadful experiences that led to the development of this disorder. Before I let you into my world, let me provide some context on how it all came together. Please bear in mind that I couldn't tell this story without the guidance of a psychologist who helped me piece it all together. Everything started on a scorching summer day. My mom didn't typically allow me to go out much, so when she finally agreed to let me spend a weekend at my best friend Avery's house, I was overjoyed. Avery and I were so excited that we even made a schedule for our planned activities. I packed my bags, and my mom dropped me off at Avery's house. The anticipation of the visit mixed with a sense of nervousness, mainly because it was my first time at her place. Once I'd unpacked my belongings, strange occurrences began. Suddenly, I couldn't recall how I had arrived at Avery's house or where I was. The closet was filled with clothing that didn't seem like my own, primarily consisting of fitted crop tops and tight pants. I'd never felt at ease wearing such outfits. As confusion mounted, I experienced a minor panic attack when Avery burst into the room, bearing a tray of cookies and bubbling with excitement. I had no desire for cookies, and a thought nagged at me that indulging in them would harm my teeth. It felt absurd considering I was only 8 years old. So why was I standing in Avery's bedroom, fixated on those delectable chocolate chip cookies? I think she sensed my unease because she didn't bombard me with questions. She simply set the cookies down and assured me she'd return once I'd settled in. I sat on the bed, fiddling with a deck of cards, yearning for the comfort of my own bed and the presence of my mom. The evening descended, and I remained huddled beneath the sheets, untouched cookies nearby, and no shower taken. Avery's voice broke the silence, a mix of concern and frustration as she scolded me, "You have to eat and shower. What's wrong with you?" Startled, I leaped out of bed, suddenly ravenous, devouring the cookies in no time, and resumed chatting with her as if the earlier awkwardness had never transpired. Before our conversation resumed, she inquired, "Are you okay being here? Earlier, you pushed me away with that strange attitude. It's unfair how you've been treating me. You're acting like two different people." I gazed at her in utter bewilderment, rendered nearly speechless. I hardly had any recollection of displaying any strange attitude. My self-composure had lasted only a few hours because I hadn't been feeling well. Our conversation ended on an unpleasant note, but I chose to let it slide. Although I didn't fully comprehend what was unfolding, I knew something was amiss. Frequent lapses in memory and an overwhelming sense of disorientation plagued me. And this was just the beginning of many uncomfortable situations. Somehow, I managed to make it through the weekend, but the random and frequent blackouts and bouts of amnesia deeply unsettled me. For a long time, I concealed my struggles, fearing that revealing my mental issues would brand me as crazy. And this marked the beginning of a downward spiral. A few months later, the blackouts and multiple shifts within me became increasingly challenging to manage. One day, I took a tumble down the stairs, and it raised significant concerns. What made it all the more suspicious was that just moments before, I had been enthusiastically discussing a new job offer with my father. My fall was abrupt and jarring, drawing immediate attention. I was rushed to the hospital, and from that point onward, my mother started to pay much more heed to my well-being. Despite my best efforts to keep my disorder concealed from my family, especially my mother, due to our past conflicts, the conversation was now unavoidable. Following this incident, my mother confronted me, gently inquiring if I wanted to discuss anything. She shared her observations from over time and urged me to open up to her. I reluctantly agreed to see a therapist, primarily because I grew wary of her persistent inquiries. It appeared to be the simplest way to move past the issue. However, I soon discovered how mistaken I was. What followed was a protracted journey, bouncing from one clinic to another. I consulted various doctors who educated me about my disorder and recommended finding a way to strike a balance and establish a timeline for each personality. They advised me to communicate with my alter egos, striving to find common ground in order to minimize the blackouts and enhance my awareness of the situations I found myself in. During one of my therapy sessions, the doctor delved into my fears and inquired about specific experiences that perturbed me. That's when I recounted my experiences with my mother. This challenging exercise triggered the emergence of Mia, who surfaced to shield me from the traumatic memories. Gradually, we began making progress as I delved deeper into self-discovery. Besides Samuel, I came to recognize three distinct personalities within me. Stella, the first personality I discovered, is an 8-year-old who tends to get despondent when she doesn't get her way. Stella enjoys watching Rick and Morty and has a fear of the dark, feeling most at ease when surrounded by other kids like her. Stella, Mia, and Layla. Layla usually emerges when I want to spend time with friends, party, or simply have a good time. She's the life of the party and the one I trust with my social life. Layla has a passion for singing and consistently dazzles the crowd with her performances. On a particular Thursday, we decided to go to a karaoke bar and chose Ed Sheeran's Kiss Me to kick off the evening. I confidently took the mic and greeted the audience, ready to sing my favorite song. As I sang, I couldn't help but notice an attractive guy across the room. While I wasn't sure if he had paid much attention to me initially, that changed as I hit the first note. Truth be told, it was challenging not to be distracted by him. Afterward, he approached me, and we struck up a conversation over drinks. His name was Isaac, and he quickly became my friend. He brought immense happiness into my life, offering an easygoing and enjoyable companionship that was entirely new to me. I had distanced myself from people due to the stress of trying to explain to everyone who approached me that I wasn't crazy. Isaac and I went on several more dates, and then, during one of our outings, Maya began to wrestle for control. Mia was the complete opposite of Layla. She tended to keep to herself, favoring melancholic and sad songs. She gave off the impression of a loner, someone who had an affinity for the darker aspects of life and often got so lost in her own thoughts that she seemed to forget other people existed. I first encountered Maya after a falling out with Avery, which had deeply affected me. Mia helped me cope with the emotional turmoil. She hadn't surfaced in a while, and I was apprehensive about Isaac misunderstanding me, but eventually, I yielded after a brief internal struggle. Isaac and I had a candid conversation about our feelings for each other. However, there came a point when I inexplicably became distant, and I vaguely remember him asking if everything was all right. He reassured me, saying, "It's okay if this conversation makes you uncomfortable. We can reschedule. There's really no pressure." To be honest, I was quite bewildered by the situation. Mia had taken control, and after that date, Isaac and I didn't communicate much. I was worried that our connection had been irreparably damaged, and I knew I needed to work on myself before I could consider another person's feelings. Days and weeks passed without any contact from me, despite Isaac's attempts to reach out through social media and at school. I maintained my distance. Then one day, there was a knock at my door. I heard the doorbell ring, and to my surprise, there stood Isaac, looking at me with questions that needed answers. "Hi, Isaac. What a surprise." "I wasn't expecting you," I stammered. He asked if he could come in, declining the offer of a drink, which made it evident that he was more interested in understanding why I had been avoiding him. I invited him inside, and we sat at the table. He proceeded to pour out his thoughts, asking me why I was pushing him away, ignoring his messages, and causing him pain. With all these whys to address, I remained composed and explained that I had been struggling to find myself, feeling somewhat lost. As I spoke, it struck me that this guy truly cared about me, and I decided it was time to open up to him about what it's like living with Did. I realized it was finally time to be honest. "Isaac," I began, "I have dissociative identity disorder. I have multiple personalities that switch on and off at different times. There's Stella, Mia, and Layla. Stella is 8 years old, and right now, she wants to come out. It's her time. But I'm overriding, which will disrupt our routine." Isaac looked at me, took my hands, and reassured me that this revelation wouldn't drive him away and that he wouldn't be scared off. I think I shed a few tears of relief. Eventually, Isaac and I became a couple. I've been diligent about adhering to the allocated timeframes for Mia, Stella, and Layla. Even with just one personality to manage, it's challenging. I worry that people might label me as strange or abandon me because they find me overwhelming. However, I'm doing my best to make it work and continue attending therapy to navigate this journey.